Hello there, it's Jan here at JB Crafts. Thank you for joining me on the channel today. And I am back today with a beautiful little construction project. This is one that I've been wanting to do for a little while, and it does originate from a die set from Crafter's Companion, but I am actually going to break it down so that you can make this even if you don't have the die set. Now, we did actually use this set a while ago on the channel, and I have got a version of this, well, a version of the die, and I'll link that video. I'll show you in a second. I'll link that video at the end, but I wanted to go on and do the extended sort of version of it. So we've actually got a 5 by 5 inch box, and it's a really nice sort of size, quite sturdy, and I've decorated all mine up ready in this one. And when we take the lid off here, it's got a series of little boxes inside. So these are all 3-inch square boxes, and they all just open up from the front, and you've got room in there to pop separate little gifts. So this would make a really nice sort of gift for a special birthday or an anniversary, or maybe someone that was having a baby. You could do the theme according, but yeah, you've got room to put 4 separate little elements in here, so they might all be different sweets or candies. If it was a baby, you could maybe put, you know, sort of some little rolled up socks in one. You could put a little rolled up bib, you know, that kind of thing, maybe a toy, that sort of thing. You could change it to a masculine theme, and you could put other elements in there. So yeah, little 3-inch square boxes. And I mean, the boxes are just cute on their own. They really are. Just to do this one as a gift box are really cute and really simple to do. But then when you put them together onto the base, and then they all fold in, and they've all got their own little space within that 5-inch base, and it just all folds together beautifully with the lid on top holding all those sides together. And you've got that sort of quite surprise element. It looks like a normal gift box until you open it, and you've got that lovely exploding effect inside. So that's what we're going to make today. I've done quite a bit of prep for this because there's a lot of repetition. Once you've made one of the boxes, you know how it works. So I've got some of them ready to try and keep the video length down a little bit. It will be a bit longer one today. So I've actually chosen a different colourway for the one that we're going to make today. I like to sometimes do that with the videos. A lot of it depends on how much of the paper I've got, whether I can recreate it or not. But I think sometimes just showing it you in another colourway, you know how much I love my pink. But I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. So doing it in a different colourway just might sort of pique someone's interest that's maybe not as big a pink lover as I am. For those of you that love pink, you could have a go with this. But absolutely any colour, any theme. Now, some of the die cuts are from the set. For example, this little feature on the front is from the die set, but this is only decorative. It doesn't hold any sort of function. It's purely decorative. And these elements on the front here are from the die set. But again, a lot of you have got nesting dies, a lot of you have got heart dies. The little bow is one of mine from a separate collection that I've got. And then, as I say, I've repeated that detail on here. So we've got just part of that die cut. Again, you can see the inside part and then the same heart on there. Stamped greeting from my stash, and away we go. So let's pop this one to one side for a second. And what we're going to do first of all is I'm going to show you how to make one of the smaller boxes here. Some of you may want to leave it at that. You might want to use that little 3-inch box as a gift box, and as I say, it makes up a really nice little box, but we're going to start there and then we'll move on from that in due course. So let's just pop that one up there and hope everything doesn't slide. And I'm going to bring in, I chose some cream cardstock for this. I was just wanting to move away from the white a little bit. This is a pack again that I've had a while. Let me just get this out of here to avoid the glare. This is from one of our stores here in the UK called The Range, and I've had this quite a while. And it's a 200 GSM cardstock, which is slightly lighter weight than what I normally use. I normally work with 300 GSM for construction products, but there's such a lot of layers to this that this weight has worked perfectly fine. I wouldn't go much less than 200 GSM or whatever the conversion of that is in pounds over in the States, but I think this, you know, it's enough for what I wanted to use today. So A4 ivory card, there was 100 sheets. I don't have a lot left. I might need to renew some of this, but that's what I'm using for all the base structure today of my little box. So we're going to start off. In fact, before I do that, I'll show you the die set, because this is what it's based from. And this is actually a Crafter's Companion set that was made for the Gemini range, and it's part of their dimensionals range. It's called the Picnic Treat Box. So yes, you can make just one individual box, or this is the one, the little picnic box that we made previously, and I will link that video at the end of this one. So this one had the boxes open from each end, and you created a little handle on it. So you get all the dies, the metal dies, and you get a couple of templates. So what I've done with this is, let me show you the actual components. It's quite a big one. You would need a full-size machine for this if you wanted to use the dies. And then you get a couple of templates in here to create the external box. So what I'm going to do is I've actually converted all this into measurements for you guys, and I used the template last time. Now, if you have the die, absolutely perfect. If you've got the die and a larger die cutting machine, you're going to take this larger panel here, oops, get off there, and you're going to cut this 4 times. You want 4 of this to make the little boxes. Now what I did was take some measurements, and I've created a template for those of you that don't have the die, and it's a really easy one to do. So that's what we're going to work from. I'm not going to use the die set to cut out the boxes today. We'll pop that to one side. I am going to focus on the template that we've created. So I worked all the measurements out from that die. It's exactly the same size. Worked all the measurements out, did my template, and I often do this with them, where I've got the pink is the score lines and the blue are the cutting lines. And I worked out that we needed a piece that was 10¼ inches by 7½, and that's what I've done here. I've got my piece that I've cut down from the A4 at 10¼ inches by 7½. So that's our starting point, and then we're actually going to add all these score lines and cut lines in. So I'm going to use my large scoreboard today, because we need to go right across this piece here. And we'll start in that vertical orientation like we've got it on here. And I'm going to do some of the score lines and then come back and do the others afterwards, and I'll explain why. So on this top edge, let me just make sure we can get this in shot. I've got lots of different score marks here, across numbers across the top. I just want to concentrate initially on these 2 ones that come all the way down. Okay, so we're going to create the 2¼ and the 5¼ line all the way down the center of my card. So I'm going to go for 2¼ here, all the way down from top to bottom, just nice and gently, because this is not quite as thick as what I normally use. And then I'm going to jump over to 3, 4, 5¼ and I'm going to do that long vertical line again. Okay, now we're going to come back to this, but I want to rotate and put my horizontal score lines in first. So we're going to go this way, and we're going to create these ones that come across here like so. So the first one is going to be at 1¾ So I've got 1¾ inches, and we're going to go top to bottom. So again, nice and gentle. I usually do it a couple of times more gently than I do if I'm working on the 300 GSM. Then the next one is 4¾ So we're going to go from 2, 3, 4¾ and I'm going to do the same again, top to bottom. Then I want one at 6½. So again, I know this is my 6-inch line, so 6½ here, like so. And then the last one is at 9½, which is why I got my larger scoreboard out. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 9½. Okay, and it should leave you a 3/4 inch tab here on this end. All right, this is going to be the closure of the box at this end. So now we've done those, I'm going to pop it back into its original orientation, and I want to add, where I've left some of these, I want to add some of these extra lines in here. So what we're going to do for the first one is I want a 1/2 inch, but I only want it in this middle block here. So I'm going to skip that first part, and I'm just going to drag this down, and I'm going to put a 1/2 inch in between the first and the second score line. And then I want to recreate that at this side. So I'm going to go over to the 7-inch marker. I'm just going to trace that down and then pop that score line in between those two tracks now then. So if we can see it here, I've got nothing in the top one, but I've got a 1/2 inch score line in this section here. This was that 3-inch section, and I've got a 1/2 inch score line at this end. And then we're going to do similar again, but I want to work in that top section and the third section this time. So we're going to create this one and this one here, and then the same at this side. Now these are only cut lines. All right, this one's a fold line, the next ones are only cut lines. So 1 1/2, we're just going to do that first bit and stop at the score line. Then we're going to skip the next bit and pop one in that third section. And then at this side, I'm going to go to 6 inches, and I'm going to do a little score line in that top section and stop when I hit the horizontal. And then I'm just going to trace that line down and then pop one in here as well. All right, so I've now got this element here. It's easier for you to see on here. We've scored here and here and here. Don't worry about this bottom section because we're going to cut all this away. And then I've scored here and here and here, and we're going to cut this section away. So that's what we've ended up with. So let's move that out of the way now. We've finished with the scoreboard. And we're going to do a little bit of folding and burnishing, or foldishing, as I created a new word the other day. Made me chuckle. Yeah, foldishing, folding and burnishing. So where all the pink lines are, we need to do some folding. So I've extended some of those lines to blue. I'll bring that back in a second. But basically, wherever there is a full length score line, we're actually going to fold and burnish. So I've got those original 2 ones that we made from top to bottom, and I'm just going to burnish those in. And then I've got one at this side again. That was the first two that we made. And make sure, I always mention this, when you are making construction, make sure that everything lines up nice and neatly. If for any reason you've just been a fraction out with your scoreboard, don't be afraid to address it when you're doing the burnishing. It wants to all line up nicely on the edges, otherwise you're going to end up with sort of wonky bits in there. So that was those first 2. Don't worry about those extra ones that we popped in. We're not going to worry too much about those. I am now going to do all the horizontal ones that we did on that long side. So I'm just going to pop all the folds in, and then we'll go across. Whenever you're making something 3D, it is better to pop those lines in with your bone folder. So again, just checking this edge, and then all those lines can then be gone over with your burnishing tool. And we're going to come this way. I tend to turn it round a lot because I'm right-handed. I prefer to do all this on the right-hand side. We'll pop it back in its original orientation. All right, so that's all those burnished in. I've not worried about those extra little ones that we just did partial lines in. Most of those are cut lines. This one we can fold right at the end. So this is what we end up with. So you should end up with a piece that's got, across the top, I can see my little space that we're going to cut out. So we're actually going to cut out, I'm going to transfer this over here now. We're going to cut out this piece here. I leave this is going to create a glue tab, this little bit here. Then we've got a side of the box with a second glue tab, and we're going to cut this corner out. This piece wants to remain intact. We need the whole section across that 3-inch piece. On the next section, we're going to cut that small one, leave a glue tab, the other side of the box, a glue tab, and cut this piece out. And then at the bottom, we don't need any of this one. So we've got the rectangle and the skinny bit at the bottom, and I've got the rectangle and the skinny bit at the bottom here. We just want that square and the little section on the end. So this is going to be the lid. This is going to be the bit that tucks in the front. Okay, so once we've done that, we can take our scissors now and we can start and do some cut lines. So I'm going to turn this on its side. You can stay over there for a minute. Turn it on its side, and I'm going to start along this edge. So the blue lines, remember, were the cut lines. So I'm going to cut up to that first long line that we did. I'm going to cut here, here, and here. All right, so let's just translate that back to our piece. So I've got the 3/4 inch one where we finished here. So you want to make sure that that thin one is on the right hand side. And this is why it's a good idea to mark the pieces that you're going to cut away. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut up the score line here, and I'm going to stop when I get to that horizontal one. So stop when I've got to this one here. I'm going to do the same on the next one. So we're going to cut right up the score line this time and stop when we get to here, and then I'm going to do the same on that third one. Oops. Just want to take that little tiny bumpy bit off the score line like so. Okay, and then you're left with these two pieces. I don't need to cut this one because we're going to take this whole section away. So I'm going to turn it round, and I'm going to go right from the bottom, and you want to try and get as nice neat line as you can here, because this is going to be the outside edge of your lid. So I am taking most of the score line away, and I'm going to take that whole section out here. Okay, I've got a nice neat edge. This will be the edge of the top of the box. Bringing these little tabs down that we've just created now, I'm going to fold the middle one in because I need all of that one, but we do have some sections on here that we said we were going to cut away. So I'm just going to cut along that score line that we made. I said some of them were cutting lines, and that's this piece that we've taken away here. And then I'm going to do the same on this one. I'm going to go across the score line that we created, and that's this piece here. So we should be left now with the two tabs that we created. Let me just bring this down a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. Put you on there and you on there. So we've got the tab here that we created. We've got the whole section here with the two pieces, and we've got the tab that we created here. All right. Now then, I can still see a little bit of the score line there, so I'm just going to nip that off. You want, these should be about 1/2 inch, the glue tabs. We're going to create glue tabs to stick the box together. And then I'm going to turn the whole thing round, and we're going to do exactly the same on the other side. So starting at the top, I am going to separate that line up to the long one, the first ones that we did. We've got rid of that section. I'm going to do the same on the next one, up to that horizontal and stop. Okay, so we've freed this one up, and then I'm going to do the same on that last one here. And we've got freed this one up. Okay, and then like we said, we've got our pencil lines here. We know that we don't need this one, so I'm actually cutting the score line away on this one. Nice straight cut right up to that top, and we've now taken away this piece. And then these two, we've still got some pencil marks on here. So again, where that score line is, I am going to take this piece off to create my glue tab. So that is this piece. And then I'm also going to take this one off. And we've got this piece here. Okay. So that's what it should look like. And you should still have two fold lines left. So when we look at our diagram again now, pop all these bits in here. This is the piece that we've got left. So if we get rid of the scrap, this is all waste. We don't need to keep any of that. If I lay this over the template now, you can see the parts. Now then, I'm just looking there, and I can see here that I actually, when I dragged my score tool down here, I've actually just missed the score line and I've come in one. I've got a little tiny bit here, but I'm not too worried about that because this is only going to be the glue tab. So it was just, and if you're not sure about that, dragging the line down the scoreboard, pop your ruler on the scoreboard. So at the 6-inch mark on the scoreboard, pop your ruler in and you can get a more accurate drag here to get into the correct track on this one. I can just see that's that 1/8 of an inch gap there. But as I say, it's only the glue tab, so I'm not too worried about that. Right, so next thing then, we just need to pop those last 2 folds in. Now, you should have a little 1/2-inch tab here and here. So we're going to pop those in and burnish, one on each side. And these are going to be part of the closure for the box. Okay. And this is our finished piece now. So I'm going to pop that to one side. Now, the next step is optional. It's just, I like it just for finishing off. And I'm going to take my corner rounder, and on the medium setting, these 2 pieces that we've just folded, I'm going to pop these in, and I just want to round the edge of the tabs here. All right, so I want to flip over and do that one. I never get these lined up properly. There we go. So that one here, that little 1/2 inch that we folded in last, we've got a nice sort of rounded edge on, and then I'm going to flip over and do the same on the other side here. Okay, like so. And then the last bit, if we open it all up again, this last bit that we cut these nice neat edges on, this one here, just the little tab again, I'm going to do the same on here. Now, as I say, this is optional. If you use the die, it doesn't do the same here. Get that in straight, Jan. Oh my goodness, we're chomping it now. That's it. That will do. That will work. So we'll get rid of those little corner pieces. And now we've got a piece that's good to go. All right, so I've got rounded corners here, rounded corners at the bottom. All right, so let's bring this one back in. Take the lid off for a second, and we'll have a look at one of these boxes now. So this is the top section here that we can see. And then we've got the back of the box, the underneath of the box, and the front. So it's going to come together like so. The reason I've rounded the corners here is because this is going to be the tuck-in bit. If you look at this one, we've just got those little rounded corners. And then the others that I rounded were the little pieces that fold inside. And I like this because if there is any gaping on the box, sometimes when you make a box and there's any gaping at the sides here, those little folding pieces prevent you from seeing inside. So the others that we made were our glue tabs. These are going to glue inside. And then it comes up and over, and it will tuck in at the front here. So a bit wobbly while it's not stuck together yet, but the idea is that it's all going to fit together like so. And you've got that lovely little 3-inch square box. Okay, so one last bit that I want to do to it before we start sticking it together, and just to make it easier, I'm going to turn it back in its original orientation like this. And just to make it easier to fold, the 2 pieces that are next to, in fact, we'll do it on both sides so that it's not confusing. On those bits that we made that were glue tabs, I'm just going to angle the corners. I can still see a little bit of my score line on this one, and I want to take that away, otherwise it could interfere with how the box closes. The same on this one. So anywhere that we've got a little glue tab, we're just going to angle those corners off. I'm going to flip it round, and I'm going to do the same on this one. I can still see the score line here, so I want to just angle those corners just a fraction, and it means when you come to close the box, there won't be anything interfering with the closure there. And then that last one, taking about an 1/8 of an inch at the bottom and just angling it up to that top edge. So we've got our box all good to go now. That's what it should look like when it's finished. And then it's time to sort of pop some glue and stick together. So I'm going to use my wet glue for this because it just gives you time to wriggle bits and pieces into place. And I'm going to start up at the top here at the front, and just on those little tabs that we made, I'm going to add glue to 2 of them first. And this one's quite a quick grab, so it's a good one for the boxes. And then what you want to do is grab the side with the bit that we rounded the corners, and you're going to bring this together and make that nice 90-degree angle on the edge of your box. And this bit, you shouldn't have any interference for that bit to fold over the top here. All right, so I've got a nice seal there. And then at the other side, we're going to do exactly the same. So I'm going to bring this up and make that nice, neat corner here. And this one should fold over. There shouldn't be any interference. If you've got any interference here, take a little bit more off. And this is why we angled those edges. And once those are in place, I like to flip it on its side and just use my bone folder inside here. And I'm just pressing on that glue tab to make sure that it's stuck in nicely in place, and we've spread all the glue out inside. Same on that one. And then we need to do the same at the back. So we've got that glue tab that we made, that we angled the corners. And we've got the same at this side. Okay, and we're going to do the same. All right, so we've got one to come in this side. If you can get both these in at the same time, it does help. There we go. And again, bring this up. Glue on me now. Always end up covered, either glue or ink. And again, make sure you've got a nice flush edge and that this piece will fold over the top. As I say, if you get any kind of resistance or interference, just take another little bit off the top of that tab. And then we've got the same at this side. We're going to put this one, and you'll find that it'll all sort of find its own way now at this point with that last corner. Nice flush edge here and room for that bit to just fold over the top. And then once you're happy, flipping it on its side again, and I'm just applying some pressure. I know it's not easy to see this bit, but I'm inside where I've put that glue tab, and I'm just applying some pressure with my burnishing tool there to make sure that they're stuck down well and all that glue spread out inside. And then you've got your little returns and your closure. All right, so that bit will go in the front there like so. And you've got really nice, neat little box, really simple, made from a piece of A4 card. It is a good one. As I say, if you just want a quick little gift box, you might just want to make the one of them, and you can take it from there. The one that we made that was the picnic treat box, we did 2 back to back, and they opened from the outside into the middle, and then we just popped a handle on. You can see how that comes together. Now this one, we're going to do a little bit of decorating on here. So I've got some elements ready to decorate my box. So I've cut, and this is the paper that we're going to use this time. This is a really, really pretty paper pad that I have had about 100 years, I think. I bought this such a long time ago, and it was from, it's a Do Crafts pad, a Paper Mania pad. They're capsule collections. They did them in lots and lots of different colours, and I think this sort of turquoisey teal colour after the pink is my next favourite colour. It's called O'Donnell 12 by 12 paper pad, and they're all different. Normally with a paper pad you'll maybe get sort of 6 designs, 2 of each, or 4 designs, 3 of each, but 32 individual designs on this one. So I went through there, and I like the fact that some of them are on a cream background because I was using cream cardstock. So I pulled out 3 papers that I wanted, 3 different pieces that I thought went together nicely. So I've got one that's got more of a solid in it. I like the stripy one. We're going to use that on the outside of the box. And then I've got a floral one as well. So they're all from that same collection. And we're going to use different parts of it for different bits of the box. So the solid one is going to go on the top here. And I want to make sure that my opening is at the front. So let's start with that one and get that one popped down. And all I've done is I've cut these out slightly smaller than the box itself. So the box was 3 inches square. I've made my panel here 2 3/4. I've just come down 1/4 of an inch with all the measurements, and I've gone round the edge with a little bit of my turquoise ink just to finish those edges off. And this is going to sit nicely, and the wet glue just allows you to wriggle everything into place. And if you want to apply a bit more pressure, I can just work from the back there and give it a good press. So that's the top section. I'm going to leave this open now so that we know which sides. Now, I chose not to do the back of this. On my pink one, the inside pieces you can see in here are still plain. If you want to add another piece of paper on there, absolutely fine. But I quite liked how all the inside of it was cream. And I'll talk to you about the rest of it when we get to that section. So let me just pop that one back up there for a second. So I'm going to decorate the front and the two sides, and I've got that lovely little pattern paper. All right, so the side of your box is 1 3/4 inches by the 3. So my pattern pieces now measure 2 3/4 by 1 1/2. I've literally measured the surface and come down 1/4 inch with all my measurements for all the mats and layers. Now on the little tiny boxes inside, I haven't done any matting. I've just gone with the paper because there were smaller spaces. I've just gone with the paper on the sides. On the lid, I've actually included some matte layers as well. So we're going to put one on the front. I'm going to turn it to the side and add one on that side piece. Then don't be tempted to turn again because that's going to be the back of the box. So orientate it back to the front and we're going to come onto that other side. As I say, if you want to decorate all of it, feel free. So for the whole project, if you're going to do the way that I did, you will need 12 pieces of this size. And I easily got that. I'd got some spare out of my 12 by 12 sheet. So 12 of these will do 4 boxes times 3 sides. If you want to cut the back as well, you'll need 16 pieces. So 4 boxes times 4 sides. But I was happy with that as it is. As I say, I quite like the cream at the back because it linked in with the inside of the box. And then a little tiny bit of decoration. This was from the set, the die set. But again, like I said, if you don't have this kind of shape, you could do a circle, you could do another smaller square, whatever you've got handy. It could be a hexagon shape. You could actually omit this bit altogether. This is just extra decoration on the top. And I'm just going to pop this straight in the centre. Just going to eyeball the centre of that square and pop that one on. And then the heart was from the box as well. From the die, and I've cut that in some scraps of this one to match. I had some pieces left over, and I've just got some little foam dots on the back of this one. So we'll take the pieces off there, and then I'm going to stick this one in the center. So again, making sure that you've got that opening at the front, and I've gone all the way round with the hearts facing that front opening. And again, just drop that down in the center, and that's my little box at the ready. Okay, so if you want to stop there, that is absolutely fine. It's a great little gift box to just pop some, you know, sort of sweets in, or a little small gift. It would make a nice jewelry box, anything like that. And if you want to leave it at that, that is absolutely fine. But for the project we're doing today, we're going to need 4. And as if by magic, I love this bit when you're videoing, I've actually prepared. You don't need to see me make that box 4 times. So these are all the same dimensions, the same way that I made them, and they're all decorated the same. So we've got our 4 good to go. So I'm going to pop those to one side, just up at the top there. And we're going to work on this base section now. So the piece that they're all sat on, these pieces, we're going to work on that. And this is actually deconstructed, and that's where the templates come in on the die set. So you'll get one that looks like this, which measures 5 inches by 3.5 inches. Really nice, easy measurement. So all I did was cut my pieces of card at 5 inches by 3.5. And then we want a score line on that long side at 1/2 inch to create a glue tab. And as always with the glue tabs, I tend to just take, because it just all goes together better, I usually take the corners off. And it does indicate as well that they are a glue tab when they look like that. So this is my piece here. The idea with the set is that you draw around the template and you cut these out, okay? And you'll need 4 of them. So you want times 4. So we've done that one there. And then I'm going to decorate the edge of this as we go along, just because it's a bit easier. So again, this was that stripe paper that I showed you, and I want the stripes to be vertical. So instead of the dots that we had on this one, we're going to have the little stripes. And again, we'll pop this on first so that I've got it in place. I find it easier to do this while it's in its sort of deconstructed shape. Okay. And I'm just going to sit that in that panel, and again it's 1/4 of an inch smaller, so it was 5 by 3, and we've now got 4 3/4 by 2 3/4. So my piece of paper, 2 3/4 by 4 3/4. Okay, and then I've just centered that on there, give that a press down, and we're good to go. And we're going to need to do that 4 times. So again, I've done exactly the same, and we've got our 4 panels at the ready. So just repetitive. I said to you at the beginning that, you know, once you've got to this stage, you repeat it again 4 times. Once you've got to this stage, you just repeat it again 4 times. And then the base itself is just a simple 5 by 5 inch square. Now there are instructions in the die set that talk you through this. It says to cut a piece of card at 5 by 5 inches, and this is going to become the actual base of the box. And I think if I show you this one, you can see where these sides are wrapped around the bottom of it. So we're going to do that next. I'm going to have this in the middle, and then we're going to put the 4 sides around it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop these underneath so that they're out of the way and they don't interfere with anything, like so. So I'm going to put the glue on the inside of the tab. And again, I'm staying with that wet glue because it just gives you time to maneuver things into place. So on the inside there, and then you want to take your 5 by 5 panel, line it up with the edges and push it right up into that score line, and then wrap it round and make sure, again, like we've talked about, when we're making anything that's constructed, your edges run nice and parallel. And then when you're happy, apply some pressure to that seam where we've joined it together. Okay, then we're going to take another one. I'm going to turn it over because I want the glue on the inside again, and we're going to repeat this 4 times to make the edges of the box. Okay, so I'm going to turn mine round so that I can see it better. I'm going to lay this one down, and I'm going to do the same again. Take the other edge, pop it up to the score line, and make sure that it wraps around and everything is nice and straight. Make sure that that piece is pushed right into the score line, and then give it a good press. And then we're going to rotate again. We're going to take a 3rd one. And again, like I said, once you've got the idea, it is very repetitive. We're just going to do everything 4 times. So glue on that inside element. I'm going to hold these shut. I'm going to use that outside edge again now and push it up to the corner. I'm going to open these so that I can see the edge of the card. Push it up to that score line again. Wrap it round and make sure again that everything is running nice and straight before you commit to sealing that tab. And then the last one, I'm just going to flip it again, turn it over, remembering to put the glue on the inside. If you get the glue on the wrong side, it's not the end of the world. You would just need to stick this on top rather than underneath. And I just think there's more chance of it getting in the way of the rest of the design, which is why I tend to put them underneath. So again, glue on the inside, and then we're going to pop that last one in place. So again, I'm going to hold it, I'm going to pop this one on top, just eyeball it as straight as I can get it, and then check it by folding it in, and it should fold in nice and square. So you can see now we've got that outside casing for our little box. So this is going to be our 5-inch square box that we will eventually make the lid to pop on top. Right, I am actually going to swap glues now, and I'll explain why. So I'm just going to pop that one to one side, and I am going to grab my all-purpose glue. Okay, so we're going to use this one to apply the boxes, and mainly because any of you that use this know how hard it dries, and it's going to give your box some stability now. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add the boxes to the inside. So you want it all open flat. Get rid of the glue there, Jan. It's been very friendly. And then we're going to start and add the boxes in. All right. So what we want to do is you want the opening towards you. And that's why I've got my embellishment facing this way. So my opening's at the front here. And you're going to work on the right-hand side panel that we've just stuck down. So this one's going to stick onto this right-hand side, right up to the edge of the piece that we've just stuck on. So I want glue all over the base of my box. And that's where this one comes in handy. As I say, it dries rock solid, the all-purpose glue. So you're going to get a really nice sort of firm stick here. Make sure this is facing the right way. And then I'm just going to wriggle this into place. And it wants to be flush with the outside edges, both top and bottom, of that side that we've just stuck together. Okay. And then you can fold it in and everything should lay flat. All right, it should be on that outside edge. It should be flush here, and it should sit nicely onto the base that we created. You can see it in there. Okay, and then that will need a few seconds to dry, but we're going to rotate and we're going to do the same again. So we're going to take the next one, we're going to flip it over, and here's the repetition again. Whatever you've done once, we're going to repeat on the other 3 sides. So again, this one's going to sit on this corner here, and I'm working on that bottom right hand corner. Just wriggle it into place, and then I like to close it up because it means then that you've got this to press on, and you should have that nice flush edge down this side and a nice flush edge at the top again. And just apply some pressure, and you'll see that there should be just a tiny little gap here in between the boxes. All right, you've got that 1/4 inch here because we had 3 inches and 1 3/4 inch depth, and that's the way that they were designed. So you will have a little gap. Don't worry if you've got that gap in there. It's meant to be like that. It allows space for you to add any embellishments on the boxes. We're going to rotate again, and you've got it this time. We're going to do the same again underneath the base. And we're going to do that same. I've got it facing me. And then I'm going to sit it onto that side panel, fold it in so that I've got some leverage to press on, and just make sure that the side's running straight, top's running straight, and then press underneath that base, and you've got 3 of them now. It should start to look like so. Okay, and then last one, we're going to flip it again, and we're going to add that 4th box onto the 4th side of our cube. So again, embellishment facing me into that bottom right hand corner. And this would work exactly the same if you wanted the boxes at this side. You just need to remember whichever side you pick, you put them all in the same position. The little instruction manual says to go on the right hand side, and I followed that, but it would work just the same if you wanted the boxes for any reason at the left hand side. Just put them all on the left hand corner. So again, that's that last one. It's nice and flush. I'm going to give it a press underneath there, and when these all fold up, you've now got that beautiful collection of the little boxes all in place. Okay, so we're going to add one final piece to the inside, and this was just purely for decorational purposes and to help strengthen the box. You could stop at this point. All right, in the instructions, that's it. But I wanted to put something that was a bit more pretty, I thought I don't want to put any more pattern paper in. I didn't want to detract from the boxes. So all I've done is cut a piece that was slightly smaller. So this space is 5 by 5. This is 4 3/4 inches. And I've just run it through one of my sort of swirly embossing folders. And I'm going to use that all-purpose glue again so that we get that nice rigid set of the glue, which will apply a bit more sort of strength to the bottom of the box. I'm going to put plenty of glue on there so that it seeps into the back of the embossing. And then I'm just going to drop this one right in the center, and you should have a nice little border all the way around the edge of there. And then we'll let all this dry while we work on the lid. So just make sure that it's all connected with the base. Give it a second for that glue to grab. And then leave this to dry. Now on the original one, I cut some smaller panels to go here as well. And again, as I say, this part is optional. It doesn't talk about this in the instructions. It was just a little bit more visual inside. And I cut some small pieces for here. Now, if you want to do that, the piece that's left here is 2 inches by 3. So you want a piece that's going to be 1 3/4 by 2 3/4. And if you have a look at this one, you can see that I've got these stuck on those side panels as well. All right, now I haven't done this on the next one, but if you wanted to add those, it's just a case of cutting those 4 bits that are 2 3/4 by 1 3/4 and just add those on. They went through the same embossing folder and I've just added those onto the sides. Okay, but I'm going to leave it like this for now. Just make sure that that glue's not seeping out at the sides there. I don't want these to stick to it, so just make sure that all your sides and your edges are nice and clean. And then we will leave this. I'm going to pop this to one side, and I'm just going to pop my punch on there, which is a decent weight, and it will hold it all together while we do the lid. Okay, so we've just got one final step to do now, and that was your other piece of template that comes in the kit. So you have a piece now that is 7.5 inches square, and it's been scored at 1 1/4 inches on all 4 sides. So not easy to see there, but that's the template. It's a case of draw around it, pop your score lines in, and that's what I've done. I've got a piece that is 7.5 inches square, and I've popped it in my scoreboard, and I've just done a 1 1/4 inch rotate and scored it on all 4 sides at 1 1/4 inches, ready to go. Okay, so like I said, you don't need the die set, you don't need the templates, we can just do it from these measurements. So take that off, and then what I've done just to get ahead of the game is I've actually put the sides to my box on here ready. So again, you will end up here with a piece that measures 5 inches by 1 1/4 inches for your side element. So if we actually fold one of these over now, I've not done the fold and burnish, so we'll do this. This piece here that we're going to use is 5 inches in width by 1 3/4 by 1 1/4, sorry. So again, I've come down 1/4 inch, and this is where I've introduced a matte layer just for the lid to give it a little bit more oomph, and I've gone with a corresponding solid. So this one measures 1 inch by 4 3/4, and then I've come down 1/4 inch again at 3/4 inch by 4 1/2. So again, you can go with the matte layer, or you could just go with the one layer like we put around the boxes. So all I'm going to do now then is just fold in those edges, again making sure that everything runs nice and smoothly on the edge, and then we do a little bit of cutting. And this is just like any other box lid now. It will fit together just like you would make any box lid. So last one there, and burnish. And if I've got a box that's square, I tend to sort of work from the corners and work my way around. If it's a rectangular box, I'll make the tabs on either of the short sides so that the tabs fit into the long side and help strengthen the long side. But when it's a square like this, I'm just going to go around and do all 4 the same. So I'm going to take away the score line and free up this one, and then I'm going to come in about 1/4 inch this time and take a decent wedge out of that bottom. I'm going to leave this edge square, and I'll tell you why when we put it together. Rotate and do the same again. So cut away the score line and cut in with your wedge. Rotate, cut it away and wedge into it. And it doesn't matter if they're not exact. It's just getting rid of the bulk out of the corner for when we glue it together. Rotate and cut away that excess. Okay, so that's that one done, and we've got the 4 bits that are waste. We don't need to keep those, so you should end up with a piece that looks like so. And then I'm going to bring in that acrylic glue again, just because it grabs a bit quicker. And what I was saying about the rectangular box is this one will have a tab that attaches to each side. So this one's going to go here, and so on and so on. If you've got a long rectangular lid, I tend to do the tabs so that they fit onto the they both fit onto the longer side. So I would have done the tab here so that they both stuck onto the longer side, and it just helps it give it a little bit more rigidity when you're doing that. So back to the tabs, we're going to put the glue on the glue tab that we've created. And then you're going to pop them together just like we did with the others. And the reason I've left that edge straight is it should line up perfectly, and you know then that you've got a good 90-degree angle on that corner. Okay, so as long as that edge of the tab's lined up with the edge of your box, you know that your corner is good to go. And then again, we're back to that repetition. So we're going to do the next one. And I do tend to go around each of them in turn rather than trying to get them all glued. I usually end up with it stuck to the desk and all sorts if I glue them all. So again, return it. You can see here there's a tiny bit stuck out here, so I know it's not straight. Pop it in until that one lines up with the edge of the box, and you've got that excellent 90-degree corner. And then I'm just going to work my way around and do the same on all 4 of those tabs that we created. Tuck it in, line it up, make sure it runs nice and straight, and give it a press. If you want to use your all-purpose glue for this, you can. I just find that this one grabs a bit quicker with the boxes. And then that last one, I've got my tab just on the inside there, and I'm going to pop the glue on that one. And then this one's going to tuck nicely in there. So again, making sure, so if it's like this, it's not straight. If it's like this and the edge is nice and flush, I know that my corner's good to go. Give it a press. Okay, so all those are in place, and then just to make sure, again, I'm going to go in with my burnishing tool and just give all 4 of those corners a nice press down. Make sure all the glue's adhered and it's all spread out nicely, and our lid is good to go. Okay, so I've got to decorate the top, which again I've just about got most of that ready because it was very straightforward. I've used a combination of the papers. I've got the same one that I did on the top of the mini boxes. I've got the side stripy one, and then I've cut a couple of these that come with the die set. Again, it could be circles, hexagons, extra squares, and I've just matted and layered them. So the whole thing is 1/4 inch smaller. So we had a 5 by 5 inch lid. We've got a 4 3/4 inch square mat, a 4 1/2 inch square mat, and then I wanted another one in the centre, and I've got a 3 1/4 inch square mat and a 3 inch piece of pattern paper. So we're actually going to pop this one on the top there. I had put the measurements on the back of here if you want to just take a screenshot. So these are the matte layers at 4 3/4 inches square and 3 1/4. The paper layers are just 1/4 inch smaller again. And like I said, if you want to stick with just the papers, you don't have to use the matte layer. I just thought, again, it added a bit more detail and it did strengthen that slightly lighter weight card. If you remember at the beginning, I said it was only a 200 GSM cardstock. So by adding the matte layers, it just adds a bit more substance to the strength of the box. So I'm just turning that in the inside so that I can apply some pressure, and we've got our matte layer in place. And then the final thing was to do the same embellishment to link it all together. So I've gone back to this pattern paper for the front. I thought that looked nice. And then we've got the little bows. As I say, I've got a whole collection that I've collected over the years of little mini bows that I keep together on a magnet from different places, different companies. And then all we're going to do is make sure that we've got our little design on the front here. And as I say, this was an embellishment from the die set. If you don't have this, you don't have to put anything on here. You could put a button on the front so that you know that's your front edge. You could add a ribbon or a bow on the front, lots of different ways. You could leave it plain, it doesn't have to have anything on the front. But because I want to make sure that my heart's facing that way the same. And I'm just going to lay that down on the top like we did on the inside, and that's my box lid complete there. So we can put the top on here. Oh, I've got one more bit to do on the front. I nearly forgot. I did make a little greeting to go on the front here. So this is just a stamp out of my set, and I've stamped it in some turquoise ink, some of my quick dry ink, and I've actually put little foam pads where it's going to overlap here, but I do need a bead of glue along the top there. So again, let's just take the backs off the foam pads, and then on that top edge I'm going to run a bead of glue because it's going to overlap the extra layers. And then originally I was going to put this here, but then I thought, well, I need something up there, and then it's going to get awfully busy, so I decided to center the whole lot, and we're just going to eyeball. I've got about the same distance either side, here and here, and then lay that one at the front there. Brilliant. Okay, so now we've got the test. Let's move all these bits out of the way. Our box should be pretty much dry. So we've got our lovely drop down box with all our little boxes inside that open. Okay, beautifully. This should be nice and dry now. Fold it all together, and then this has been designed so that it fits, and it is very snug, but it needs to be snug in order to keep everything together. So you need to make sure that everything's lined up perfectly, and then the whole thing will just pop on, and it seals all the sides together. As I say, it will be a snug fit, so make sure everything's nice and squarely lined up, but it means that it holds everything in place there, and you've got your design good to go. So what appears to be just a gift box, when we take off that lid and open it all up, you've got that beautiful drop down set of gift boxes there. And I just think it's such a pretty project to make. And then when it's broken down into steps, like I said, it is just one box repeated 4 sides. It's one side panel repeated on 4 sides, and then the lids are just like any other box that we've made before. So it isn't as hard as it looks. You know, when you see something like this, you think, oh, I don't know where to start, Jan. But break it down into the steps like that, and what looks really fancy is quite straightforward. And as I say, just make sure, excuse me, everything's lined up nicely before you drop that lid on. As I say, it will appear to be stiff. It wants to be nice and straight and lined up, and then it'll just pop on perfectly. Any extra decoration that you want to do, absolutely fine, no problem. The only thing that I added, I think, to this one, I didn't go wild with it. Let's just put the lid back on that one. The only bit that I added to this one was just some extra pearls. It had to have, even though I got pearls on the little bows, I was like, oh, it's just crying out. So I just popped some on either side of the sentiment there just to finish it off. So we've got the pink and brown version, and we've got the teal version. So again, let me know in the comments which one you like. If you like, I know some of you like both of them when I've done this before. I always ask if you have a colour preference. I love the pink, but as I say, the teal, the turquoise and teal is probably the second, as well as all the neutrals. Those will be the 3 that I gravitate towards: the pink, the teal, and then those neutral sort of grungy shades. So yeah, absolutely lovely. 5 by 5 inches by, what did we say it was deep? I've forgotten again. 3 inches. Yeah, 3 inches deep. All right, so a good size. And then you've got all those gorgeous little boxes inside there to pop in some nice little gifts, whether it be candy or presents, or you might pop a gift card inside one of them. Absolutely perfect. So if you're going to have a go at this, let me know. Let me know down in the comments. And if you want to share any of the designs that you make following any of the tutorials, you can find me on Facebook at JB Crafts, and you can upload your photos at any time and I will have a look and reply on Facebook. So thank you for sticking with me to the end of this one. It was a little bit longer, I think, just to get all that construction in. Consider giving it a thumbs up for me. It does help tremendously with the channel. And if you're not subscribed and you've enjoyed the content today, perhaps you'd like to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell and it'll let you know next time I upload. Typically I upload Tuesdays and Saturdays every week. Occasionally there is an odd one in between, but Tuesdays and Saturdays are my regular upload days. And yeah, that's it for today. I'm off swimming with one of the little grandbabies today, my little new grandbaby. He's 4 months old now, and we're going swimming this morning. He's a little water baby. So again, I'm videoing early this morning. It is only, well, it's 10 to 9 now. I wanted to get this out of the way so that I can go off and spend some time with him today and his mum. So I will see you all later with a new tutorial. It'll be on Tuesday, the next upload, and I'll be back then. So enjoy your day, whatever you've got planned, and I'll see you very soon. Bye bye now.